Mutant animals across America. Grotesque wildlife mutations across the US traced to ancient viruses as insect-borne outbreak fears grow. Disturbing images of deformed wildlife are surfacing across the United States, sparking alarm about the health of both animals and humans. From rabbits with tentacle-like growths to squirrels covered in oozing sores and deer bearing massive wart-like swellings. Residents in states spanning Washington, Minnesota, and New York are reporting a surge in bizarre animal conditions. Now let's unpack the layers of this story in our deep dive on the AI podcast.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something that's been making the rounds online, and honestly, the pictures are pretty unsettling. We're talking about wildlife sightings across the U.S., like Washington, Minnesota, even New York animals looking like something out of, I don't know, science fiction, rabbits with these really weird kind of tentacle-like growths, squirrels with oozing sores, and deer with these huge wart-like masses. Yeah, my first reaction was definitely, okay, what is this? Some kind of new plague? It looks really jarring. So our mission today is to figure out what's really going on. What are these conditions? Why now? And the big question, what does it mean for us, for human health?
It's fascinating, actually, because despite how, well, grotesque they look, these aren't really signs of some brand new mysterious disease. What our sources are showing is that these are actually, well, they're old viruses, centuries old, in fact. They're just seeing a resurgence, spreading more, partly because of certain environmental factors that are really boosting them right now.
Okay, so centuries-old viruses getting a modern makeover.
Yeah.
That definitely changes things. Not new monsters, just old ones acting up.
Yeah.
Can you paint a clearer picture? What exactly are people seeing out there?
Yeah, absolutely. The reports are pretty consistent. Like in the Midwest, Nebraska, Minnesota, South Dakota, people are seeing cottontail rabbits with these really pronounced growths, mostly around the head, face, neck area. They can look quite disfiguring. Then you've got squirrels. This is more across the northern U.S. and into Canada, showing up with these wart-like things. Sometimes they ooze, which, adds to the whole unsettling look. And deer, pretty much coast to coast, Pacific Northwest to the Northeast, they're being seen with these lumps or masses. And the size varies wildly. Could be tiny, like a pea, or in some cases really large, almost football-sized swellings.
Wow, football size.
Yeah.
That's huge. So if these are older viruses, what's making them spread so much now? Is there like a common link?
There is. And it mostly comes down to insects, mosquitoes, ticks, the usual suspects when it comes to spreading diseases. Dr. Omar Awan from the University of Maryland School of Medicine, he points out something critical. The conditions across the U.S., warmer, wetter, they're basically creating a perfect breeding ground for these insects. They're thriving, their populations are booming, and they're expanding their range. So these insects pick up these old viruses from infected animals and then spread them to others, sometimes in areas where the virus wasn't common before.
Okay, so the insects are the key transporters here.
Exactly. And we can even pinpoint the specific viruses. For the rabbits, the ones with those really obvious growths, that's the cottontail rabbit papillomavirus, or CRPV, sometimes called Shope papillomavirus. It's been known about for ages, especially in places like Colorado. But now, it's clearly moving into new territory in the Midwest, hence those growths around the head and neck. For squirrels, it's squirrel fibromatosis. People often call it squirrel pox. Causes those wart-like bumps. They can look nasty, might even ooze a bit, but the good news for the squirrels usually is that they often heal up on their own. But here's an interesting bit. Human activity has kind of accidentally made it worse.
How so?
Well, think about bird feeders. We put them out to help the birds, right? But squirrels love them too. So feeders concentrate squirrels in one spot, bringing them into close contact much more often than they normally would be. And that makes it super easy for the virus to spread from one squirrel to another. The feeder becomes a sort of transmission hub.
Huh. I never would have thought of that. Bird feeders as disease hotspots for squirrels.
It's those unintended consequences. And then for the deer, it's deer cutaneous fibroma, deer warts, basically. This one's interesting because it's caused by a papillomavirus, which is the same family of viruses that causes warts and sometimes cancers in humans. Again, the size varies, tiny lumps to those really big masses we talked about. Usually they're not deadly for the deer, but they can cause problems. If a growth blocks their vision or makes it hard to eat.
Right. It just shows how everything's connected, doesn't it? Even something simple like a bird feeder can ripple out in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of us have feeders and never considered them disease transmission hubs. Definitely makes you think.
It's a perfect example, really, of how these environmental factors and, well, our own actions can influence how diseases move through wildlife populations.
Okay, so we've got these old viruses spread by insects that are doing really well right now. But the question that's probably on everyone's mind looking at these pictures, are we at risk? Can humans actually catch these specific things from rabbits or squirrels or deer?
And that's the absolute key point to get across. And the answer, according to all our sources, is very clear. No. Humans cannot contract these specific animal viruses. There's a biological barrier. These viruses are adapted to their specific animal hosts, rabbits, squirrels, deer. They just can't replicate in human cells. And importantly, even though insects spread them between animals, they don't transmit these particular viruses to humans through bites.
Okay, let me just repeat that for everyone listening. So you don't need to worry about catching like rabbit warts if you see an infected rabbit. These specific viruses stay in their animal hosts. That's the crucial thing for our own immediate health concerns, right?
Exactly. That's the vital piece of information. No direct threat to you from these viruses. And this is really important, but while the animal viruses themselves aren't the issue for humans, the reasons they're spreading are a major concern for our health.
Ah, okay. So it's not the animal disease itself, but the conditions allowing it to spread. Those are the real problem for us. What do you mean?
Well, the real worry is the bigger picture trend. All those extra insects. The same warm, wet conditions letting these animal viruses thrive. They're also letting mosquitoes and ticks have a longer active season, survive winters better, and move into new regions where they weren't before. And that directly increases the risk of human diseases that are spread by these insects.
Okay, so what kinds of human diseases are we talking about?
We're talking about some serious ones, things like Lyme disease, which many people are already familiar with, West Nile virus, even Zika, dengue fever, chikungunya. And let's be clear, these aren't minor illnesses. In severe cases, they can be fatal. Dr. Emwan actually gave a pretty stark warning about this. He said, and I'm quoting roughly here, we'll start seeing these diseases become endemic, meaning, permanently established in places they weren't before. He called it a perfect storm for these illnesses. So the creepy-looking rabbit isn't going to give you warts, but the mosquito buzzing around could be carrying West Nile. That's the connection.
Wow. Okay, that really puts it in perspective. So the wildlife stuff is like a canary in the coal mine, a visible warning sign of this much broader ecological shift that does directly threaten human health. It's not just about the poor deer with warts, it's about the environment that's making the deer sick, and potentially us too, just through a different route.
Precisely. It's a chain reaction.
So if these viruses are ancient, why the big surge now?
Yeah.
You mentioned the environment. Is it just climate change driving this perfect storm for insects?
Climate change is definitely the main engine here. Those longer periods of warmth and moisture are just ideal for these insects. It lets them breed more, live longer, expand their range. AccuWeather actually put out forecasts highlighting this. They're predicting that parts of, I think, 25 states, especially in the east and northwest, will have a hotter than usual fall, which means mosquitoes and ticks stick around longer, staying active well into the autumn much later than they used to. And meteorologists are confirming this isn't just a fluke summer, it's part of a bigger pattern shift.
Right, so it's a sustained change, not just a blip. And I guess the other part of why now is simply that we're seeing it more. You mentioned people sharing pictures.
Absolutely. Social media plays a huge role in visibility. Dr. Awan mentioned this too. He said something like, when people see a rabbit with grotesque growths, they take pictures, they share them online, and that immediately fuels awareness, discussion, maybe even alarm. So social media isn't causing the outbreaks, obviously, but it definitely speeds up how quickly we notice them and start talking about them. It makes old problems feel very new and maybe seem more widespread than before.
That makes total sense. We're more connected, visually at least. So, okay, practical question then. If you're out hiking, or even in your backyard, and you see one of these animals, a rabbit with growths, a squirrel with sores, what should you actually do?
Yeah, good question. The advice from wildlife agencies, like Colorado Parks and Wildlife, for example, is really consistent on this. Do not touch them. Don't try to help, don't try to capture them, just leave them alone. And there are two main reasons. First, even if the virus won't jump to you, handling a sick animal could help spread it to other animals in the area. You could accidentally become part of the transmission chain for the local wildlife. Second, separate from the specific virus, Any sick or wild animal can carry other things, bacteria, parasites that could potentially pose a health risk if you handle them. So best practice is always observe from a distance. If you're really concerned about the animal's welfare or the situation, you can report it to your local wildlife or animal control agency.
Okay, so the bottom line is admire from afar, report if concerned, but definitely no touching.
Got it.
So let's sort of wrap our heads around this. These really bizarre, unsettling images. They're caused by viruses that have been around for ages, not a new monster, it's an old story. But the plot's being twisted by climate change, boosting the insect populations that spread them.
Exactly. And the crucial takeaway, the bigger picture here, is that while the animal conditions themselves aren't a direct threat to us, the insects carrying those viruses, they are the warning sign. They represent a growing direct risk to human health from diseases like Lyme, West Nile, and others. It's like nature is sending up a flare, signaling a broader environmental shift that has very real consequences for us down the line.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? I think it's just a really potent reminder of how interconnected everything is, isn't it? A warmer climate means more insects, which helps old animal viruses spread, making wildlife look sick. And even though those viruses don't jump to us, the same insects are out there, potentially carrying diseases that do affect us. It all circles back.
It really does. And maybe it raises a final thought to ponder how something that seems so specific and maybe far away, like a rabbit with strange growths in another state, can actually be a symptom of these huge environmental changes that are quietly building up year after year and will eventually impact our own health, maybe in ways we don't fully grasp yet. It kind of makes you wonder what other subtle shifts are happening right under our noses in our own backyards that we should be paying closer attention to. What other signals is nature sending?
One question for you. Do you think climate change is the main reason behind the rise of these grotesque wildlife mutations? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.